Well, indeed, we stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. So thank you, Millie and Richard Fuller. Are they in the house? Must be wandering around somewhere. And Fred and Marjorie and Ed Miller, if you're watching, and all of the founders of Emerson. Because of you, we are here. Right? Amen. Thank you. The sign outside says this is a Unitarian Universalist congregation. But what is that? And how do we know if we are one of them? I bet at least a few of you, if not all of you, have asked yourself those questions at some point. Yes? So how many people identify right now as Unitarian Universalist? Okay, how about if I say it? How many people identify as being on the spectrum of Unitarian Universalism? Okay. Now, how do you know that you are you, or know that you're not? Now, no worries if you're not sure, because as with everything these days, there is an app for that, or at least a website with a survey. So how many people have taken the Belief-O-Matic quiz? A few of you? Oh. It's a website that claims to be able to identify your religion through 20 short questions. Now, years ago, I took another version of the What Religion Are You quiz. It told me I was a Seventh-day Adventist. I kind of freaked out. But then I realized it was probably because I answered all these questions about strict diet and I didn't drink caffeine or have alcohol at the time. But after I saw that result, I ran out and got me an Irish coffee. Later, I did another version of the quiz that deemed me a Buddhist. I could live with that. But I was disappointed that it didn't name my true identity at the time, was very much a mystical, atheist, process theologian yogi. But I guess that wasn't one of the options for the quiz makers. When I discovered the Belief-O-Matic, I avoided it for a while, afraid of what it would come up with. But the other day, in preparation for this message, I finally gave it a try. And the results are in, my friends. Are you ready? According to the Belief-O-Matic, your minister is a Unitarian Universalist. Amen. I did the test twice just to confirm. Now, the fascinating thing about this process for me was to see how excited I felt when this little online survey revealed that I was UU. I don't know why, but I was scared. I thought maybe if the results were different, I'd have to rethink my entire life and vocation. But it was more than that. Seeing the words Unitarian Universalist pop up on that screen gave me a deep sense of belonging. Amen? Finally. I know some of you can relate when I say I never felt like I belonged to a religion before in my life. Not really, at least not one that would pop up on as the answer to one of those quizzes. Throughout my life, I just didn't fit in with religion. I had come to accept not fitting in as part of my identity, but then there was this website telling me I did fit in. Now, that was all wonderful for about all of 10 minutes. Then I started to panic a little. Was I being pigeonholed? That's how you know I was UU, because I was asking that question. Was I being pigeonholed? Pegged as something just because of these 20 brief questions? Who came up with these things? What did they know about me? Were they seeing the whole of me? Again, you can tell I'm UU. If this computer thinks I'm UU, does it think I accept everything about Unitarian Universalism? The present and the past, the good and the not so good? I mean, the truth is, there are many things that fit for me about Unitarian Universalism. So many I became a minister. And if I were to make a list of my ideal religion, much of what is in Unitarian Universalism would be on my list. Much here feels like me, but not necessarily everything. Are you with me? Yeah. Let's talk about these shoulders we are standing on as one example. This theologically open faith has developed on the shoulders of some extraordinary people. People like the 16th century theologian Francis David. David was someone who challenged the religious rules of the day to declare religious freedom, sacrificing his life because he refused to use Jesus' name in prayer, and for that he was killed. Now that's some badass commitment to your beliefs, right? And we also stand on the shoulders of some other theologically brave people who in the 1800s declared declared universal salvation, a radical thought at the time. And others who said, no, Jesus was human, no more divine than themselves. And without these people like Universalist minister John Murray and Hosea Blue and people like Unitarian William Ellery Channing, among so many others, this UU faith that we sit with today may not exist because of what they did. And yet, as inspiring as the stories of these people can be for us, realizing on whose shoulders we stand should also make us feel a little uncomfortable, maybe a lot uncomfortable. For all the shoulders we stand on are not inspiring figures. I mean, the truth is, if any of these preachers just mentioned above entered our pulpit on a Sunday morning now, you may not be too happy about the male-privileged, God-centered, gay-denying message that they may deliver. And though many Unitarians and Universalists were abolitionists and suffragettes, they were not all. Our namesake, Ralph Waldo Emerson, is a case in point. Emerson was a man with some inspiring theological ideas for sure. The transcendental movement which he birthed clearly informs many of our own theological thoughts about the miracle of nature, about the ability for each of us to have a personal connection with Source. And yet, this man whom we cherish for so much was in fact a white supremacist. In his own writings for much of his life, Emerson maintained his proposition that whites were a superior race to blacks. Now, he eventually became an abolitionist, and yet I'm not sure, based on his writings, that he ever really believed that all men were created equal. And I choose the word men deliberately. To quote one source of Emerson, saying, in the case of women, Emerson's initial posture was quite traditional. On one hand, he exalted women, and on the other, required their submission. Women were equal-ish, according to Emerson. Now, luckily, he was good friends with Louisa May Alcott, who I like to consider probably, kicking his behind once in a while about these issues, but the truth was he maintained many of those thoughts in his writings and his beliefs throughout his life. So, Emersonians, good time to take a deep breath. I know a congregation that removed the name of Emerson from their fellowship hall to distance themselves from him. Now, they call this cancel culture now, the idea that we reject or cancel someone based on actions and beliefs, even if those actions and beliefs were far in the past. Is that wise and thoughtful to do such, to cancel? Perhaps. But I'm going to let you all decide and invite a discussion during our service reflections today, because that's not the point of this sermon. In more recent history, our own Unitarian Universalist leaders have on more than one occasion shown themselves to not be the shoulders I think we would have hoped they would be for us to stand on. In one instance, at the Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly in 1993, faith leaders made a cringeworthy at best and racist, in fact, suggestion. That year marked Thomas Jefferson's 250th birthday. And since host city, Charlotte, North Carolina, was in what was then named the Thomas Jefferson District of the UUA and near his plantation, the white male minister at Thomas Jefferson Memorial, who honored Jefferson, suggested that GA should honor Jefferson as well. So the GA Planning Committee took his suggestion and decided that the Saturday night ball of that year's GA would celebrate Jefferson. They suggested that UUs attend the ball dressed in period costumes from the early 19th century. I'm going to stop for a moment so you can take that in. Period costumes were suggested. On Thursday morning of GA, in the first business session, Hope Johnson, who would later become a minister, a black woman who at the time was the lay leader at Community Church of New York, stepped to the microphone to read a statement from the African American Unitarian Universalist ministers and allies from a variety of racial and cultural backgrounds. The statement Johnson read argued that honoring Jefferson, an unrepentant slaveholder who advocated the extermination of indigenous people in America, showed a profound lack of sensitivity and judgment, particularly in view of the UUA's stated thrust this year towards racial, ethnic diversity. And she continues, she said, if UUs were to wear period costumes for the ball, must African Americans attend such events in rags and chains? Not our finest moment. While many protested the ball and did not attend, many others did attend for various reasons. We stand on the shoulders of Hope Johnson and others who named the harm that we have done. And we also stand on the shoulders of the ones who caused the harm. We can't pretend we don't. We do not always feel proud to be a Unitarian Universalist or an American, for those of us that are. Thomas Jefferson UU Church did eventually change its name. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting we change our name, but I am suggesting that we recognize that shoulder standing is messy. Remember the opening words? The ones that come before us are not always ones to be proud of, but then again, will our descendants be proud to receive what we are creating right now? Someone once commented how we all want to be the one to throw that final bucket on the fire, to save the day, to make the big difference, to be the ones who get it right. Because of that, we can want to defame what has come before us and picture ourselves as the wise ones, right? They didn't know any better, so we'll ignore them. I've got it right. But I have come to believe that to be Unitarian Universalist isn't about that at all. To be Unitarian Universalist is not about having the answers. It's not about getting the theology right, being the one to finally point out the fire of injustice. To me, to be a Unitarian Universalist, you must be willing to be in that line, receiving the bucket from the person to your right, make a contribution to the bucket, and then pass it on to the person to your left. To me, that is Unitarian Universalism. It's been that way with our theology. We get something from the ones whose shoulders we stand on, we add our own drops to the bucket and pass it on, creating a theology that is even more open and loving than our forebears. But we are not getting it right any more than David or Ballou or Channing did. But hopefully we are getting it a little better. Yes. And it's that way with our justice work. Emerson surely did not have it right, but I don't think we have it right either. But hopefully, we're getting a little better. Sometimes the bucket of water we receive needs some major filtration, right? Sometimes we want to look at that dirty soup we are given and look back at who gave it to us and say, really? This is the best you could do? How am I supposed to clean up this mess? But as Unitarian Universalists, we take it and we move it down the line. The thing is, even if that handy-dandy belief-o-matic pegged me as a Unitarian Universalist, and even though I agree with their findings, I do not agree with their methodology. The belief-o-matic uses a series of questions about what you believe to identify your faith. But I think as Unitarian Universalists, it's more about how we be than what we believe. So just for you today, I'm going to unveil the new UU-O-matic quiz. It's only 5 questions to reveal to you if you are a Unitarian Universalist. So here we go. I want you to keep track of your score. If you are here because you find value in being with other people and creating community, give yourself a point. If you do not want to be told what to think or believe, but instead want to be invited to use many sources of wisdom to explore life's big questions, give yourself a point. You get a bonus point if you think the word mystery is really cool. If you think that our actions, both individually and collectively, can make a difference in creating a more just and equitable world, give yourself a point. And you get a bonus point if you have done something lately to promote justice, equity, and inclusion. If you feel that welcoming all into the community is a spiritual practice, give yourself a point. And give yourself a bonus point if you feel inclusion is actually a spiritual or moral mandate. And the last one. If you feel having snacks at fellowship time and gathering for potlucks are vital to your religion, give yourself a point. Okay, add up your points. Got your number in mind? Okay, here's the results. So, if you took the quiz with a sense of humor and willingness to play along, raise your hand. You are Unitarian Universalists. If you sat there wondering why the heck the minister was doing such a silly thing, you do not need to raise your hand, but you too are a Unitarian Universalist. Amen. If you sometimes look around and feel, yes, I love these people, these are my people, you are you. If some days you look around and think, come on, these are my people, you are you. If you feel some days you have found the perfect faith and are proud and inspired by those on whose shoulders you stand, you are Unitarian Universalist. And if sometimes you feel embarrassed by the harm our collective ignorance has caused and commit yourself to doing better, you are indeed a Unitarian Universalist. Really, only you can decide if you are you. But just remember, no matter how you identify yourself, someday we will all hand that water bucket to the next person in line. And someday it will be others who will look at us as they stand on our shoulders. You or not, may we be worthy of their approving gaze and hopefully compassionate look. Amen.